Smoky skies, drought in October, it can feel like signs of climate change are right here in our backyard. But further out in Canada's backyard, those signs can look very different. One of the best trails in the Canadian Rockies has been closed ever since a flood that was brought on by extreme heat. And leaders in BC have been talking about rebuilding that trail to be climate resilient. We wanted to find out what that means, so we went into the mountains to check it out. How do you rebuild a trail to be climate resilient? And the answers they find could change the future of Canada's parks. So we are just heading up now to get in the helicopter to fly up to the Berg Lake Trail, and that's usually something that you would hike in and do and camp for a couple days. But we're flying today because the trail's been closed for well over a year. It will likely be years before people can see the trail that makes Mount Robson a world-class hiking destination. It's been shut down since a flood in 2021 ripped out entire sections of the path. Park manager Elliot Ingalls knows this area and what happened better than anyone.
So we are basically on the shores of Berg Lake. We're kind of standing in the middle of paradise, I guess. It's kind of one of the most beautiful places, I think, in the world.
Well, now you get a full view of Mount Robson, the highest peak in the Rockies, nearly 13,000 feet high. The tumbling glacier takes form and in a furrowing of crevasses tumbles into Berg Lake. It's like this.
Well, you go across something like this, if the weather switched on you and you got a rainstorm, that'd be gone.
That'd be gone. It sure could.
Half a century later, that prediction's come true, and experts believe it's likely it'll happen again.
My name's Brian Menounis. I'm a research professor at the University of Northern British Columbia. And what we can't see is we can't see the majestic, much larger Robson Glacier. And that particular glacier has undergone substantial retreat. And in the last 30 years, that's largely due to humans and the introduction of greenhouse gases.
So when you say it's receded, by how much?
Well, we're talking several kilometers from the edge or the toe of the glacier, the lowest elevation, and where it sits today. But we are expecting to see, with the introduction of more greenhouse gases, further heat domes, further heat waves, that will punish the glaciers that we have in Robson Provincial Park.
It's hard to believe anything could shake Mount Robson's sheer, overwhelming mass. But a few days of extreme heat and floodwater from melting glaciers tore it apart.
We're standing right in the creek. This creek blew out and took out a major piece of infrastructure. Like, there's some old wood over there. Like, that's not from this bridge. There's just debris everywhere through here. When we were up here for those few days, it was about 37 degrees at this elevation, which was just incredibly hot for this area. And we were watching the glaciers. It looked like they were sweating. You could see water, visibly seeing water, like pooling off of the glacier. They have a finite lifespan, and we're watching them recede in front of us. And last year especially, the volume of water combined with the hot weather created this major event. And yeah, this area was underwater. This bridge was underwater. It was like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime working in parks.
The full scale of the damage didn't really become real until we traveled a few kilometers south into a valley near some of the trail's most recognizable waterfalls. It's the place Ingalls remembers some of the worst 48 hours of his career. How vivid are your memories of those days?
I started up the trail at about 4:30 in the morning, and as soon as I got to the first bridge, I was just like, okay, this is it. 20 tons of rocks covering a bridge that had sat there for 20, 30 years, the river coming up 30 feet. This is unbelievable. This is nature, as much damage as you can see along this trail. This site, Whitehorn, is where we mobilized the helicopter and search and rescue, loading about 30 hikers into the helicopter and flying them down.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I couldn't believe it. When I got called on the radio that morning, we knew it was going to be bad, but we didn't think it was going to be that bad.
Somehow, everyone made it off the mountain safely, but the trail was in bad shape. If you had to, compare this area to the other parts of the trail that flooded, where did this rank in terms of severity of damage?
So while the flooding was happening, this water would have been well over the top of where we are right now. And now you can see it's kind of dug a deep channel along the edge of where the trail used to be. To me, it's so unbelievable, and it really speaks to the event and how unbelievable nature can be.
This year, crews started repairs with new bridges around Kinney Lake, the lower third of the trail. The work will progress to bigger projects like reinforcing riverbanks and elevating or rerouting trail sections that were wrecked. The work is complicated and time-consuming, to say the least, but it's critical.
Comfortable, a nice height. Excellent for having tons of stuff on. I could see families playing cards on there. That is a nice spot. BC Parks knows how vital this is to the community. It's the second oldest park in British Columbia. This trail has had an incredibly long history of people recreating here, and it's just a part of the history of the park. And people will look back on this in another 100 years and say, remember when that happened? Hopefully it's an eye-opener for future generations to look at how we recreate and how we do conservation projects in parks, and it's important. It's a story to tell.